Welcome. I'm Joe Webb. I'm your host tonight for Public Affairs, Public Access. And tonight we're here to talk about a general plan for the City of Houston representing Blueprint Houston. I'm going to introduce the people around me at the moment to tell you the truth. The first is Rogine Calvert on my left. Rogine G. Calvert is a native Houstonian who has seen Houston grow from an enclave of immigrants, primarily from China and Mexico, to an international metropolitan city that has been declared the most diverse city in the nation. She has served in the nonprofit sector for 3 decades, public service for 10 years, in City Council for at-large Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem Gordon Quan's office, and in Mayor Bill White's administration, and in the business and economic development arena as president of the Asian Chamber of Commerce in Houston. And she currently serves as a director in Outreach Strategist, which is a public affairs and strategic communications firm, and has been on the board of Blueprint Houston for over 5 years. Next, I would like to introduce Jackie Mayhorn. She has been involved in super neighborhood initiatives since their inception in 2000. She was a super neighborhood president for the East Little York Homestead area, super neighborhood, for 9 years. And while she was president of that group, she ended up being the president of the Super Neighborhood Alliance until 2009. She has been on our board of directors at Blueprint Houston for about 3 years, bringing that very unique community perspective and Super Neighborhood Alliance input to us. She moved to Houston when she was 5. She is a native Houstonian in my book. Guy Hagstedt, straight ahead of me, is a native Houstonian who oversees major civic projects involving both the public and private sectors. He's currently working on the Buffalo Biopark and recently oversaw the development and initial operations of Discovery Green. Through his work at the Downtown District and Central Houston, Inc., Guy has also been extremely involved in downtown's revitalization from the early 1900s to 2005.
Joe, I'm not that old. Early 1990s.
1990s. Sorry about that. I should be reading a little better. Sorry about that.
Sometimes I feel that old.
Well, there are days. And me, I'm an architect and urban planner. I chair Blueprint Houston. I have that great honor. I've been intensely involved in neighborhood and city planning and quality of life issues, both as a professional, as a citizen, as a neighborhood person, since the early 1980s. And I too have watched the city change. I mean, I can remember going downtown with my mother, and you could walk anywhere under trees, under walkways, and it was just, it's different. I've lived inside the loop for the majority of my life. With that kind of aside, basically, what we're here tonight is to really talk about why Houston needs a general plan and to get some different perspectives. Jackie is going to talk to us first because she brings the Super Neighborhood Alliance, an immediate neighborhood on the northeast side of town's efforts, and implications that may and may not relate to Chapter 42. And with that, Jackie, I'm going to throw it at you.
Okay. Well, I just want to say that, you know, when we talk about neighborhood concerns, it's different, different characteristics all over the city of Houston. And mostly I'll probably be talking about from the northeast side, right? I've been doing this for about 13 years, working in Super Neighborhood Alliance, saw the vision, bought into it. We've done a lot of work. So we went from beautification projects to, now the communities, they're sophisticated. They're doing visioning. They know what they want for the community. We've done all of that, drunk the Kool-Aid and all that. So where do we go from here? Yeah. How do we implement the plans that we've put into place? How do we make that a reality? So if we sit here and we think that the city can transform it without input from the community, we're kind of just playing with ourselves, right? But we need leadership. We need a strategic vision for the city, because We need management districts, I think, also. You know, we need any opportunity that we can to help make our communities move. And, you know, I've seen little to no development in the Northeast area. I mean, we've been working, we've been planning, and okay, so what's the overall plan for the city of Houston? Yeah. So we have our plans. How, you know, we don't need to be fighting city council, going up there every week saying, hey, this development is bad for my community. Where we already have a vision, we've submitted it, and it's probably sitting on somebody's shelf in the city of Houston. So what do we do with it? They have input already from the community. You know, so I want to know, how do we get HEB? How do we get movie theaters? And where I don't have to drive 10 miles to Humble to go grocery shopping or to a mall or anywhere. I have to leave my neighborhood. And, you know, where are the jobs? So if we're going to do redevelopment in our communities, we should also have a plan to create or hire the people that are in the community. So if they're contributing, they're more likely to sustain the community. And then the other thing is that we're doing, you know, density planning with Chapter 42. You know, we got a whole lot of issues that haven't been addressed, not enough education for the community. But if we had a general plan, we wouldn't just go and make changes to 42 arbitrarily. We would have studies. We would know strategically what areas we could actually go and start developing, you know, the right type of development. So, you know, how do we sustain where, you know, our senior citizens and people with disabilities can still live in their homes? So what are we planning for? We're planning for other people to move in from other, you know, places. That's not what I'm planning for. I'm planning for a sustainable community. And not only that, but where people can live anywhere in the city and come and be invited to, you know, my community also. So it's not just a whole lot of low to middle class people in one spot, you know. So those are some of the things. And with Chapter 42, you know, increase of property taxes. No study has been done. We don't know if that's going to really move all our people outside of the city, you know. So are we really, you know, doing the right thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Flooding impact. Northeast Houston area was the hardest hit area, you know, in the city. You know, so, you know, people being able to just come in and build high rises or whatever, you know, will that actually be good for your community? And then, you know, what we were told is, okay, well, after it's passed, if you have deed restrictions, that's good. But if you don't, you're going to have to go door to door to expand your lot sizes. You know, that's crazy. Why aren't we doing planning ahead where we don't have to do all that and take our neighborhoods through, you know, just stuff that's unnecessary?
Jackie, one thing you might do also is let everybody know just exactly what Chapter 42 is, because I mean we do it and we're talking planning speak as usual or whatever, but they need to understand that it's our development ordinance for the city of Houston and how it impacts us. I think that maybe can help.
Yeah, and you know, with Chapter 42, so I guess it's a lot of changes that they want to do, but mostly it's around density, right? They want to increase the property taxes.
Yeah. For the past 15 years or so, the city has had one set of development regulations inside Loop 610 and another set of development regulations outside of Loop 610. Inside of Loop 610, development can be denser, buildings closer to the sidewalk, all kinds of things. And now the city is proposing to expand that denser development zone all the way out to Beltway 8. Just take in the entire area. And a lot of concerns in the community about the hows and whys and the impacts and the studies and all these things that Jackie is bringing up.
Yes.
And it's quite controversial right now in the super neighborhoods and other civic organizations.
Yeah, so, you know, I'm suggesting, and I know next Wednesday, you know, it'll be a discussion, you know, down at City Hall, you know, about this here, but it's too many unanswered questions, you know, so people, if they don't know, you know, they're going to come up with their own, you know, conclusions, right or wrong. You know, but if the community is educated on what it is, no, it won't impact my senior citizens, or yes, it will to a certain extent, or we won't let certain development come into fragile neighborhoods. So it may be good that we can implement some of this stuff in certain areas that won't be impacted. But when we go to, areas that, I'll just say fragile, haven't been revitalized, we want revitalization, not dislocation,
Yeah.
right, in our community. So that's the first thing that we're looking at. So. And the first thing is that without a plan, where are we going?
Yeah.
Very good question. Rogine brings a little different perspective, because Rogine has worked within the maelstrom of what happens at City Hall on a regular basis. And now that we've heard kind of what Jackie's worried about on Chapter 42, can you give us some of the background on how people see it from the city's side?
Well, everybody thinks they're doing the right thing, and there probably isn't a right and wrong answer to all of this. But when you brought up, Chapter 42 and the implications, there's some good things with it and bad things. And the problem is I don't think we have people looking at both sides necessarily. I think our development community has maybe had a stronger voice in the past, and I think that we've seen the city of Houston truly grow, but it's almost like, I look at it like an adolescent growing. It's kind of like, just lankiness and not really coordination, and that's what we're lacking. And in the city, I think if you talk to some of the city planners and the professionals that do this, they would think we're doing a planning. And, we probably are. We're doing this plan, this plan, this plan, and it's a set of individualized plans. Transportation, how long have we been working on our public transportation versus major roads and thoroughfare? How does that link in with public transportation? And housing. I don't even know if we have a housing plan, but, affordable housing versus the high-end housing. So each little sector has their beautiful plan, and it's going the way they may want to see it, but it's not cohesive. And so a general plan for our listeners that may say, what is this? I think the easiest way to describe it is like a roadmap, a framework, as you were saying earlier, that things, fit under, and that your neighborhood plan, Jackie, you've been working on it. It's probably a great piece that has gotten input from all of the residents and citizens in that area. So like you say, where is it? Where does it fit in the overall city's planning? And I think that's what's missing. So I don't want to, criticize professionals in the city that feel like they're doing these things, because I think they are in their own sector, but we are lacking a guidepost, a framework, and the leadership we need to say, here's our vision, especially when it's estimated, I believe, Guy, you can tell me if this is true, in the next 30, 40 years, the size of LA, a population the size of Los Angeles is expected to move into the greater Houston area.
Yeah, and actually that's another set of issues that Blueprint Houston began to look at, aware since the beginning of the organization of the desire and the concerns of citizens to be engaged in the future of their city. In the last couple of years, we've been aware of some other more subtle but profoundly important forces and changes that are occurring in our community, starting with this issue, Rogine, that you just pointed out, which is the huge influx of new citizens into the Houston region. What doesn't get discussed is that that influx will almost entirely occur outside of the city limits of Houston. We talk about Houston being this city that's growing by leaps and bounds, fastest growing city in the country, when actually the city of Houston, within the municipal boundaries of the city of Houston, is barely growing at all. In the decade from 2000 to 2010, we grew by about 145,000 people, with a huge chunk of that being evacuees and new citizens as a result of Hurricane Katrina. As a result of this radical decrease in population growth from what Houston has historically experienced, the city of Houston has historically experienced, we're seeing impacts in our tax base. And of course, it's our tax base which generates the revenues that provide the services that Jackie and others in the city all of us are expecting. And that is because Houston historically grew by annexation. That was the strategic plan for the city of Houston. Correct. Since day one. As growth occurs out there, we're going to capture it and bring it into the city. Well, that stopped in the 1990s, and we've only had what we call limited purpose annexation, which is a quite different thing altogether. And as a result of that, we have lower population growth, lower tax base growth, fiscal challenges. We hear about Mayor Parker and all she's doing, and quite honestly, I think she's doing a great job with the situation that she's inherited. Trying to balance the budget. And it's because of these subtle, profound changes that are occurring. On a more positive note, we know the results of recent surveys that show that for the first time ever, the majority of people in Harris County would like to live in a walkable, urban neighborhood. That's great, should be great for the city of Houston. I think the real frustration, and I'm sure that this is an aspect of Jackie's frustration, is that people want that, and as a city, as a community, we can't deliver it. We're not set up to deliver it. We don't have the strategic framework in place where all the pieces, the transportation you mentioned, the parks, the transit, the infrastructure, libraries, police service, all strategically aligned to deliver that kind of environment that citizens are now saying that they want. We also have, and Jackie mentioned management districts, new forms of governance coming up that haven't really fully been taken into account in terms of how the city goes about its business, how the city delivers service. And we're all learning as we go, and things are getting better, but again, the world is changing, and we think we're at a very, very important moment in Houston's history. And in addition to these historical reasons why a general plan would be of real benefit to the city, we've come to realize that there's an incredibly important strategic reason for Houston to adopt this process and go down this road, and it's because the world out there is changing. And if we don't get on top of it, we could watch what the city that we've loved and enjoyed slip away. And that is what brought us to the point of developing an initiative that I'm going to turn it over to Joe, who's going to provide a summary.
Yeah. Well, basically, what you're hearing us talk about is a general plan. And what is a general plan? Basically, it's that vision, that set of guiding principles. It's a citizen-based statement of what we want our city to be. And the key is we've got to be prepared to get the city we want. And the only way to do that is to strategically plan. And strategy is not about status quo. It's about change. And we are in the midst of it. I mean, Guy referenced the population statistics. I mean, if HGAC has projected that we in this region will have the city of LA on top of us in population again by 2035. That's another 3.5 million people. And a huge chunk of them will, the numbers I remember, about 900,000 inside the city proper. The rest of it's the region. So we have some issues there, to say the least. But those long-term goals, those strategies, those policies, those are the way we get to that particular vision. In a roundabout way, maybe you could call this general plan a constitution, because it's where all of us as citizens can see ourselves in the part of the agreement on how this thing operates. So maybe that's some way to think about it. I mean, for us to do a really high quality plan, we've got to look at lots of things simultaneously. We've got to look at the economy, the community, the environment. And that's what a general plan does. It knits all of these things together. It's commonly called a comprehensive plan, but because it looks at all those issues comprehensively. And once we've kind of got those sets of goals and that framework and that that adopted vision in place, then we can get to work. We can analyze, we can flesh out a plan, we can truly develop policies and strategies that let us address how our development regulations impact the neighborhoods, how the city actually functions as the deliverer of those efforts. And we start addressing the issues that Guy alluded to, which is the tax base issue. I mean, we've got to incentivize development coming back into the city. We've got to grow inside the city. And one thing that, remember, and we're going to show you a quick little PowerPoint here. One thing to remember is that we're going to point out some challenges here. But remember, buried within all of these challenges are some very significant opportunities, and we need to be ready and in place to take advantage of them. I want to walk you through what we've been presenting to the neighborhoods, and I will remind you before this is over, but if you would like to see us make this presentation, we will come out to your neighborhood, let us know, and I'll give you that contact information here in a bit. But I'm going to walk you through the PowerPoint right now. This is all about working together. How to make Houston, we call it a great city, how to make Houston a greater city. We've got a lot of transition. Houston's changed before our eyes. I mean, the question is, are we really ready to seize the moment? Or are we just going to simply sit there and watch it slip away? The growth, is it really over? Guy alluded to this. The city grew 145,000 people. That was only 11% of the growth in the region in the last decade. The county grew over 500,000. The county and the other unincorporated or incorporated cities grew almost 550,000 people. That's a big decline for us. That's different. That's a big change. You can see on the slide here, the blue line is basically the city of Houston and how our growth is slowly inching up. The red line are the other incorporated cities, and they are basically holding stable. That green line that is rising, and at about 2019 will actually cross the city of Houston, that's the growth in the unincorporated area of the city. And that's not that far away, 2019. So it's telling me, and I think it's part of what we're concerned about, is we need to draw those people into the city of Houston. So what happened? There's the yellow is the city of Houston. We are 653 square miles. The area inside the loop, which is the current urban area according to Chapter 42, is about 75, 80 square miles. The changes they're talking about would expand that regulation to the full 653. The red that you see are those limited purpose annexations that have been occurring around the city because we've figured a way to capture some tax base. And the darker shade of gray is what is the extraterritorial jurisdiction of the city of Houston. That's our power to influence and control growth around us. That area that you see there is almost as big as the state of Rhode Island, to give you an idea of the concept of how big this is. But we lost annexation. This slide basically talks about our property tax revenue. The vertical bars are the quantities, and as you can see, in 2008, 2009, we kind of hit a high point there, and then we started dropping. But that red line was the percentage of growth. And as you can see, it took a nosedive into 2011, and it started to come back up. But that horizontal red line is zero base. We are still in negative growth, even as we speak. And that is, again, for the city of Houston. It's not for the region. This is just the city. So what does this mean for us? Looking at long-term cumulative deficits. Out of the Comptroller's office and out of one of the city council committees, they looked at the best scenario of 4% growth. We still have a $1.3 billion deficit at 2031. If we stay on the current line of growth, where we are right now, that's the blue line that you see, it's about a $2.6 billion. if something untold happens, as you can see, those two other lines start really do nosedives if we lose some momentum. So we do have some fiscal issues staring us in the face, and I know the mayor is very aware of it, and she's definitely working on it, but it's going to take all of us ultimately, because we're all in this together. So basically, we need that long-term strategy. We have got to enhance our investment client, and we've got to build that the city's tax base. I mean, good planning is seriously good business. We need to plan. This gives you an idea, because we're going to switch a little here about transportation and density and housing in this area. That red arrow talks to Houston. The graph basically vertically is talking about usage of energy. The horizontal is an area in square miles per person. As you can see, Houston's way over there on the right. We're very, very, very sprawled out. Intriguingly, back over kind of in the middle of the slide is Los Angeles, which everybody thinks is sprawl city. They're significantly denser than us, and they're not too far behind New York City. I would be tickled if we can figure out a strategy to get us to LA. I'm not even, getting to the European cities and some of those others, that's a toughie, but I think we can do the other, to tell you the truth. Everybody has the preconception that Houston is very inexpensive to live in, and housing can be very inexpensive, and I think we hold that pretty well. But the two center cities there that you see, this is 2010 data. 55% of a person earning the median income in the city of Houston, they're going to spend 55% of their income on housing and transportation. That's what we don't hear talked about. That is a huge number when you think about it. And immediately to the left is New York City at 56%. The numbers reverse. Obviously their transportation is a little less and their housing is more. But we've got to seriously take a hard, cold look at how we relate housing and transportation, because those transportation costs are killing us. And there's even more recent information out of the Center for Housing Policy in the fact that we are losing ground, and Houston is now actually the 17th ranked metro area on affordability out of the 25 largest in the country, and housing and transportation cost, and this is 2012 data, now consumes 60%, no longer 55%. The numbers have gotten worse, so we've got to address it. Now you're asking, why do we show you this house? There are 7 cars sitting in that driveway. For all we know, there's one in the garage, but I doubt it. I bet they've converted it to living space. According to AAA, it cost us $10,000 to maintain, insure, and operate each one of those cars in that slide. That's $70,000 worth of expense sitting in those slides. We are very car-centric. We have got to rethink moving around in transit. We've got to understand it. Car's always going to be here, but we've got to provide choices and options. This gives you a little idea of how the city really has changed. In 1980, you can see by the predominant color there that the demographic diversity in the city was not that great. It was heavily Anglo. The kind of darkish gray areas were black. The kind of yellowish is Hispanic, and the orange is kind of mixed. The next slide shows the change, how we've jumped in 2010. I mean, not only is the city, the region is probably the most diverse in the country, and the city is definitely the most diverse. The population now is basically 40% Hispanic, it's 33% Anglo, it's about 19% black, and about 8% or so Asian. It has really changed. These are demographic transformations on the county. Gives you an idea of how it's changed from 1960 2010. And as you can see on the far left there, in 1960, 70 some odd percent of the region, the county, was Anglo. Look at the right-hand side. It has changed radically. I mean, we are really a multicultural, multi-ethnic, diverse city. So it brings into question one thing that we really talked about is regulation. All of a sudden, one size fits all isn't appropriate. And that's what we tend to do. So we've got to rethink it. And part of that process is that back into a general plan, and how do we develop those strategies to make sure we address those issues. The slide we were just looking at, preference. Steve Kleinberg's been asking this question at the Kinder Institute for years, and these numbers are from the City of Houston. The City of Houston residents want a more walkable neighborhood, 62%. They want to live in those areas where they can walk to work, play, shop, restaurants, you name it. They want that workable urbanism, but we haven't been providing it very well. What's intriguing is this slide. As you can see, this is basically the county in residential preferences. In the second from the left, in 2010, the county residents were saying, 36, 38, 39%. We're saying, okay, we want walkable urbanism. 2012, it jumps to 51%. That is a huge shift. And this is people overall, the whole county counting the City of Houston. The far right there is the City of Houston's number. So it's not just people in the city. It's everybody starting to understand that we're spending way too much time not getting to know our families, not being productive, spending time in the car. And unfortunately, this is a good example of walkable urbanism in the City of Houston. The woman on the left there, if we could go back for a second, is trying to walk on a sidewalk but can't because there's a utility pole, hedges, and it's also not level. And the guy walking his dog is having to contend with the car in the middle. So we've not listened to our citizens and the fact that we want it more walkable, and we just haven't gotten there yet. So what we say what we want is on the left. What we get more often than not is on the right. So we've got to really think about this and put some strategies in place to get us there. Several of us who do this kind of work always have these slides that we always try to get a feel for a crowd. What do you want your neighborhood, your area to look like? The left-hand side shows what they definitely do and what they definitely want on the right. And this is a scale system of +10 to -10. And as you can see, everybody really wants that walkable urbanism, but 9 times out of 10, we don't get it. This is another interesting little part of it, transit. The numbers are something like over 90% want transit, more transit options. They want to spend, the two middle sets of bars talk about spending for more for transit and all, and how that all happens. We definitely want it to happen, but the right-hand set of bars are very intriguing because 60-some-odd% of the people actually don't use transit, but they do want it because on some level they understand we have got to fix this thing, but we also don't give them many options. We don't give them the availability is the problem. We've got to rethink that. And I know there's some studies underway at Metro to do that very thing now, to reanalyze how we do those things. But we also, as citizens, need to make that known. And this is a countywide set of statistics. The challenge is creating that transportation system, and people are asked, would you put more money into transit? And 57% say yes, and 43% say highways. And this is the county numbers. So there's a definite want and perception of need on all levels around the county. The two squares you see here are to give you some idea of how Metro tries to cover areas. Both of those are basically 10 miles square. Downtown is so dense, and all the stops and the inner loop. There's even a separate map for downtown that's even denser yet. But when you get out into the far northwest, Metro's got a few routes for buses, and then mainly their park and ride system. So it's being able to get out there, and that's also where the development's, a lot of it's going on at the moment, but we've just physically got to be able to get there and offer those options. This is how some of the transportation costs have been going of late. For a good while there, Metro was a definite increase, and TxDOT was having troubles. And then, as you can see, they kind of hit, and all of a sudden TxDOT is getting more money, and Metro's taking a bit of a hit at this moment by not doing more expansion. We've got to readjust that so that we balance the system so that we have good transit and good highways. I mean, what this is all about is quality of life. I mean, cities came about because of commerce, getting to know people, getting relationships, social relationships. I mean, it's about concentrating people, it's talent, it's being able to create that live, work, learn, play environment. And so how do we do that? We got to have a plan. We've got to be able to promote denser, mixed-use, pedestrian-friendly development that's served by a wide range of transit and transportation options. We need to plan. The other impact, and Jackie's been alluding to this when she talked about her neighborhood, is we have physical decline in large areas of the city. So we've got some neighborhood blight. But then we've also got very established neighborhoods who have a fear of growth because they feel threatened. I mean, we stole Ashby High-Rise Graphic fair and square because they did feel the need that they were being threatened. So what we have strong neighborhoods that are threatened by inappropriate development, and we've got places like Jackie's neighborhood that are underdeveloped and screaming for development. They want development. So we've got to figure out how do we incentivize development in those areas and at the same time protect not only the established neighborhoods, but those fragile neighborhoods you were talking about. How do we protect them? How do we, and yet, pull that investment in? So we've got to have that plan. We need to protect healthy neighborhoods, and we've got to be able to help the others reinvest. So it's back down to, this is all about fundamental change. Like I said earlier, strategy isn't about status quo. It's about change. We've got to come up with those strategies. So the question is, how will we do that response? When will we do that response? It is a big, tough, cruel world out there, and this is a competition. Houston is not just competing with cities in the state anymore. We're competing not only with just cities in the country anymore, we're competing globally. We have got to be able to attract the best and the brightest. So we need to have that quality of life. We need to think about how we grow and how we take this city to that next plateau. We got to have that plan. The Roadrunner always had a plan. Sometimes it didn't work, sometimes, but he always adapted, he changed, he went forward. And that's what a general plan is about. It's a living document. It changes because the city changes, people change, we all change. And to think that we got here without a plan, this is the 1836 Gail Borden plan for downtown. This functions like a champ to this day. Guy was with Central Houston in the downtown district and understood this grid probably much better than any of us in this room, and how it has impacted most of our concepts of this city. When you get north of the bayou there, that's when it all falls apart, because the plan didn't go that far. And so you can actually see it when you look at aerial photographs. That part of the city doesn't work as well. And to say that we don't plan in the city, this is from the 1912 Comey plan. This is the Bayou Greenway plan. This is also what we all just voted for on the bond issue. This is how long this idea has been around, since 1912. The green Bayou plans are, you know about, that's the part of the trail systems, but that green circle on the left, that's Memorial Park. The one down at the bottom is Herman Park. The one on the right is Mason Park. I just blanked on it. I hate to do that. And there's also the kind of a crude idea of the 1912 version of the loop. So lots of things in that 1912 vision are here in place and active today. Sometimes when you plan, it doesn't quite end up the way you thought it was going to. This was a plan that was done about mini rail back in the early 80s that didn't happen, but it did happen. This is our HOV park and ride system. It is one of the most phenomenal systems in the country. I mean, it moves 30 or 40% of the people who come into downtown to work every day. It does the same thing with the people in the medical center. And those are huge employment centers. I mean, planning has brought us there. I mean, it's brought us to where we are today. I mean, Houston didn't just happen. And everybody thinks we don't do a lot of planning. And Regine hit this a while ago, is there's lots of planning going, lots of little planning, but there's no overall vision, overall strategy to kind of knit this together. So it's now a choice. It's our choice. It's your and my choice. Which way do we go? Do we go to success? Do we go to failure? I mean, it's all about the environment, sustainability, it's about transportation, safe and livable communities, it's a healthy and thriving population, it's about investment. I mean, we need that general plan. I mean, we need that new strategic vision. We've got lots of demands and challenges coming in the 21st century, of the 21st century, but at the same time, we've got some significant opportunities on how we direct, how we grow, and how we get to that city we want. So the idea is, let's all come together. We want you to join us in this, and part of that is looking at some notes that I should have had a little better situation here. Part of that vision that the citizens came up with through all the citizens' congresses, through that Blueprint has worked on, is these key things: a diversity of opportunity, a choice for home, work, and play in a healthy and beautiful environment, sustainable prosperity and development, coordinated land use and transportation plans, a wise government, an educated and skilled workforce, and a vibrant and internationally recognized center for expertise. With that, we've got a few minutes to go here. Guys?
Yeah, Joe, I'd like to just jump in and,
yes, do.
Say that listening and watching the show, I'm sure that this is can be a daunting topic for folks watching on TV. It's like, oh my gosh, where do we start? And sometimes you can start with some pretty basic fundamental ideas. I and I think Joe attended a lecture, Peter Park, who has been a planner in Denver and in Milwaukee. And in Denver, they went through a strategic planning process, and they started with a very, very simple first question, which was, where do we want the city to change, and where do we want the city to not change? And they mapped that.
Yeah.
And then that leads to, okay, where we want the city to change, we need to change the infrastructure. We need to change the transportation patterns. We need to change the parks and the libraries. We need to change how we deliver other city services, garbage, police, fire. So this doesn't have to start, you know, up at the PhD level of planning. I mean, we can, and I think all of us can get engaged in questions like that, and help shape a future for our city that will be a more enjoyable place for us and for our children and grandchildren to live, that will deliver this great city of opportunity that is a location of choice for the best and brightest around the world.
Yeah.
And as you pointed out, you know, Blueprint Houston has gone through in the last 10 so years the Citizens Congress. You mentioned it, and
Yes.
that was a fairly comprehensive process where 1,000 or more citizens were able to come and tell what they wanted. And Jackie, you've gone through a lot of other neighborhood processes, and so I think we have to remember that these plans need to be rooted in what the citizens want, and it's not just a bunch of talking heads or professionals at the city level or county level sitting around a table and saying we want, because I think that's kind of where our planning has been. You know, this is good for this group or this, and it's not been really from the grassroots up, because we live it and we know what's good for our community.
Yeah, I tell you, when we actually visited, you know, the Congress, that really got me excited, and it really moved our community forward as, hey, we want to create our vision.
Yeah.
You know, and so we were at the table, and we were like, oh, we want transportation here, we want a college here, we want, you know, restaurants here. We got to plan it, and we got to see it. So now we want to see reality.
See where
you
it
know,
goes, yeah.
we have it.
Yeah.
So how do we move forward with that?
Yeah.
I think that's a very important question.
You know.
And I think your group, because of the hard work you've done for the past dozen years, is ahead of where we are as a city as a whole. You're ready to implement. And the city as a whole, I'm not sure if you got 6 people or 10 people from Houston in the room together, we wouldn't get 10 different answers, very different answers as to where the city should head. And so we have some very basic questions as a city to answer before we can start talking about as a city how to implement something. And I might mention that so often zoning and planning come up in the same conversation. And we are not talking about zoning here. Zoning is one small fraction of the puzzle, and it is a tool that is used to implement a particular strategy. We don't have our strategy yet, so there's no way to know if zoning is one of the answers or one of the tools to use to get there.
I tell you, and see, with Northeast Beyond 2000 was our planning initiative. And guess what? We didn't just come out as a citizen and just say we're going to do that. We got the resources from the city. We had the planners. They did renditions. All of that stuff is documented, so we're not alone. We're working in concert with the city, but then after you finish planning, it stops.
Jackie, I think one of the issues there I'd like to bring up is the fact that we do have a 6-year term limit for our elected officials.
Yeah.
So that speaks to the more importantly, we need a plan, because our people change. You know, either professionals and especially elected officials.
Yes.
You know, they get in for the first 2 years and it's time to run again, and then before you know it, 6 years are over, and even though they might have been in there advocating for, you know, your plan, they're gone, and another person comes in and they may or may not agree. So there's no continuity, no institutional memory.
We lost ground with the last.
We did.
Yeah.
And
I'm
that's
just gonna
happened, I
say,
don't know
with
how
the
many
last mayor. I'm
administrations.
just saying, because they don't see value in the super neighborhoods and the work that they do. I'm just going
But
to
if we had a
say
document that was approved by the powers that be and the people and said, this is our plan, this is our guideline or our direction, then that would be something administrations after could follow.
And I think one of the challenges with that very observation is that I believe some in office, some in elected office, feel threatened by the idea that a plan can kind of constrain the decisions they can make. So we might want to merge the idea of a plan with the idea of elected officials, especially our mayors, campaigning on the basis of how they're going to continue that plan or change that plan, so that citizens are aware going into an election of some of the very real-world implications beyond patching potholes and hiring police officers, of the real-world implications of, if I vote for this candidate, I'm likely to get this trajectory for our city. If I vote for this other candidate, I'm going to get this other trajectory, and we'll have a more informed election process.
Yeah, because we've got to tie planning with implementation. I mean, it's got to happen.
We have to tie it to the real world,
Yeah.
and how the city functions,
Yeah.
and how citizens and elected officials think and behave and act.
Yeah.
I mean, this is
And
Yeah.
and also we think we miss the opportunity with the Harris County, right? You know, we talk about the city, but the county has a lot of money, and they impact our community. So where I am, they're doing development all around. So you got Fall Creek, you got Summerwood. You know, coming up, you have the Aldine East District, a management district that's doing a phenomenal job all around us. And so we plan to open up Little York to the Beltway so we can invite commerce in, you know, create jobs, have people come through our community. While the county pulled the street from opening up saying, hey, I need a reservoir so I can protect people on the west side. So that's a fundamental, you know, issue. If the community is planning economic development there, and then somebody else has plans, and we're not really connected with the county.
Yeah, it's got to be in concert.
You know, and
like
but
you
we
said.
found that out by meeting with the city, so they went and did some investigation. I mean, the city has been great for support to come up with our plan. What they haven't done a good job with is, okay, now that you have your plan, and I think this is in any, what do we do with it? So I work in the West Chase District. They're not going to have any issues with implementing or developing and beautifying that area. You know, so I'm like...
I want to go back to a point you made, which is something along the lines of we don't have a connection with the county. Jackie, you pay county taxes.
Exactly.
We all in the city pay county taxes.
Yeah,
we have a connection to the county,
the way
and
we
it's very
hound
legitimate.
City council...
To ask the county or
Yes,
expect the county
yes.
to be at the table.
Yeah, they need to come to the table. So, you know, we just need to, our elected officials, you know, it's just hard. We need every opportunity. So if we can use elected officials, we'll do that. If we can use management district, let's come up with a strategic plan on how we're going to get there, because I'm ready.
And so often the reason is, oh, we don't have enough money. I mean, we're tight resources, but this is really about optimizing the resources we have and having all the pistons firing in sync so that the engine's more powerful and helping get us to where we're going more efficiently, not less efficiently.
Exactly. I've heard some of the argument for planning because it'll take too long, cost too much money. You know, that's been a rationale. But you know, you look at all the different things that are there. It just takes that vision and leadership to pull it together and working together, the county and the city.
Yeah.
And I think also for developers, if they are more open to come and talk to the community, I think it works well, other than cutting deals with city council. You know, it's a lot of pull and a lot of politics. You can't even get, for certain things, you know, they want to bring in bad development for my community, and I've had officials from the city go and try to threaten my job because that deal is already done, kind of thing.
Wow. Jeez.
Brought in the development, the community didn't want it. Leland Woods is still sitting there. Went bankrupt. They're still trying to revitalize an 80-acre turfs. Now we brought in Berkeley Homes, came to the community. We set the deed restrictions with them. They sold all their homes. You know, so we kind of know what we want in our community, and so the community supported that developer. Where that other one, they haven't even moved to develop the whole 80-acre tract. You know, and then other development came in, putting mud, a utility district on top of affordable housing. Now, how much sense that make in our community, you know, on Wayside? But I'm like, so we negotiated where they did better development, more green space. We worked with that developer. You know, we didn't get rid of the mud thing, but I'm like, you know, how much, you know, how is the city going to pay for infrastructure so they don't have a way, you know?
I think, basically, I think we're starting to get close to on time here. and want to try and get some last words in here to tell you the truth. And I will apologize because I didn't tell everybody about Blueprint Houston in full. I mean, we're a 501c3. Our total mission is simply to assure the creation of a general plan for the City of Houston based on the citizens' visions, values, and goals. We would love to come out and do our presentation for you. You can catch us on our website at www.blueprinthouston.org. If you want to email something, send it to martha@blueprinthouston.org. We'll get back to you. We would love to come out and talk to your neighborhood, for sure. We've got a tiny bit of time, so kind of some quick.
Joe, I think there may have been a phone call.
Did we have a phone call? Still do. Can we take it? Okay.
Press that lower right button.
I think we just took it.
I'd like to ask, what is the common denominator of all this? How do we get the county and the city at the lowest common denominator to find something that they could focus on and move in that direction? How can we marry the county and the city into some wonderful thing that could happen? I just read a thing about San Antonio, it was a great article. And Houston has so much more than that. So what are the ideas to bring the county and the city together?
I think the common denominator is the common denominator is the citizens themselves. We tend to have our elections and our civic dialogue is just deaf to these issues. And if we could engage as citizens, elected officials will listen to us if we insist.
Yes.
And if we can focus the discussion where we want it to go, rather than the campaign consultants feeding the usual stuff to us. So I think the common denominator is the citizens. I am a citizen of the City of Houston, and I am a citizen of Harris County. I pay taxes to both governmental entities.
Yes.
I think it's a good
I mean, basically, what we've got to do is get people out there to join us, to get that general plan in place. We've got to make sure that we don't let these huge opportunities slip away from us. Yeah, we've got some challenges, but we need to do that. Coil us, join us. We need to be prepared to get the city we want. And the only way to do that is to have that strategic plan in place. I think it's incumbent. It's about the power to infuse our neighborhoods with value and meaning. I think we're almost to a point that we've got to make those decisions. Any last words, guys?
No, I hope we can get everyone to join us. I think I hit it on the nose. We've got to speak and be heard.
It's the citizens speaking. I once heard that 10 phone calls to a county official's office, this was coming from someone in the county, could actually change the direction of a vote. 10 phone calls. So citizens, when they speak, are heard, and it can change things.
Yeah. Well, we thank you all for joining us tonight, and we hope you have found this most informative. Do contact us. We would love to talk to you more about this. Thank you very much.